Rucha Vertak is I'll say today we have a speaker who is not only a professional, but she's also a teacher come social activist. And currently she is designated as a partner with a reputed firm called Hari Bhakti and Company. Prior to that, she was her own and having her own training institute as well as a visiting faculty for the making computer courses learned to the students. And she also has her own company where she used to make a software development for the people who are in SME space. And in her core competencies, she specialized in doing the systems audit, which includes SOC 1, SOC 2, ITGC, ISO 27001. Apart from that, she also has the various skill sets like SAP configuration testing control review. She has expertise, access review, data migration audit, formulation of IT policies and procedures, continuity and disaster recovery plan, IT risk assessment, IT due diligence, technology effectiveness review. And this is her skill sets. As far as her curriculum is concerned, she is a BSc in physics and computer science. She has also done her CISA, Certified Ethical Hacker, and also finished her GDPR course from the European University. And she has been a speaker on the various forums, like recently she has conducted one session with IIM Mumbai chapter on the cybersecurity space. Apart from that, she has done the online sessions for careers in information security for students in VIT, and also on the various topics like data migration with the ISACA Mumbai chapter, and on various IT fronts. And so I also mentioned that she is a social activist. So she has very actively participated in the programs which are on child protection projects, plastic waste management, and she can even write in Braille. So this is her detailed background which I have of Rucha. And over to Rucha, I'll request her to take us and make the participants enlighten about the IS audits and cybersecurity front.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning all, and thanks for having me here. The topic given to me is information systems audit and cybersecurity, probably the most talked about in the forums these days. So you might be wondering whether you will find the same something different or something new in this session, or you're going to get the same 30,000 feet view. So my efforts would be to talk something about new and different. So let's see whether it meets your expectations and requirements. In a given time and in a virtual meeting environment, it may not be possible to interact immediately, but feel free to reach out to me in case you need any further information or clarification after the session is over. Now, talking about the audits, the information audits in specific, I believe that every audit is a journey and it is to be enjoyed with all the challenges that it will bring. And it is not a race to win. If you have this mindset, then it can bring enormous amount of richness in your professional life. And then when you will sit and chat with your friends and colleagues after many years, maybe you will have many stories to tell about this journey. Second thing is, audit is not about fault finding exercise. It is about the understanding of business environment, business risks, IT risks, and then giving suggestions, remediations to mitigate the risk to your client. So in that sense, it is a professional partnership. So the role of auditor or a system auditor has now changed to having that independence, of course, to a professional partnership that will take your client to the next level of information security. Needless to say that banking and IT are very tightly integrated. Cybersecurity is a subset of information security. So I thought that first I will cover the information security audits or information security in general. And since it's a series, so I can take advantage of a few more sessions and then talk more about cybersecurity or the current things or trends that are going on in cybersecurity or any other topic which the the core team feels that I can deliver, I'll be more than happy to share whatever little I know about this particular field. The fundamental difference between a systems audit, where you are able to limit the number of applications or number of components that you want to audit. In cyberspace, we have to remember that it covers literally everything under the sun. Hence, it is very difficult to draw the boundaries. Secondly, the bad elements will be always over there for easy money, and the banks will be always there on their radar. Third thing is this enemy or the bad element in the cyberspace, you can't see them. So the only thing that we can do is protect our own systems, that's all. We cannot counterattack. Or we do not really know from which side, on what way the attack will get manifested. So that is another challenge that we have. One more challenge is that the banking channels, some of the banking channels are open 24/7. It's really sometimes become difficult that whatever controls have been implemented are whether they are adequate or there is something more to be done. So in this context, I remember two terms, which are FUD and FOMO. So FUD is the term which is mostly used by the marketing and sales professionals, and it stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It is generally used to influence the consumer by appealing to his or her fear. And the FOMO is fear of missing out. This is the term which is used in the context of social media actually, where the anxiety is stemmed from the belief that others might be, enjoying or safe, while the person who experiences this anxiety is not doing that. And it is characterized by the desire to stay continuously in connection with the others who are doing it. Okay, so it is also defined as a fear or a regret or a feeling of loss as a result of not participating in a particular activity. Now, in the context of today's subject, it is the feeling that some people or some organization systems, people feel that they are safe, and they feel that theirs are not, theirs are vulnerable. Okay, now this bank has implemented a control, we have not implemented, so we are more vulnerable. Now what happens is, whether you are an auditor or whether you are an auditee, we have to provide the reasonable assurance to the top management, your investors, stakeholders, etc. Now in this fluid environment, having a fear in the mind is not advisable at all. Another thing is, there are few vendors who are trying to scare you by painting a very dark picture of cybercrime, cyber insecurity, and then they're trying to sell their products. Now, let me tell you, they're worse than the hackers. So cybersecurity is not about securing the systems alone, but it is also about reaping the benefits of this technology. Now, you all are stalwarts in your fields, but I thought that in this session, let me talk about very fundamental things that we need to know about the systems and cyber, so that whatever new processes or technologies that can be used for improving the cybersecurity posture or information security posture in general, that can be that you can know about more about it. And of course, you can work and talk with your chief information security officers in his language, so that you will be able to understand and gain insight about the systems that you are using. Now, I believe that this particular session, or maybe another 1 or 2 sessions, will help you to take out this FUD and FOMO out of your mind, and it will declutter your mind, and you will be able to judge the security posture in more objective manner. So let's begin our journey, but all of us know that we have to go miles before we sleep. So there are 2 parts to today's session. Let's see how the time permits. The first, I thought that I should talk about the systems audit. Is my presentation visible to all? Yeah. Okay. So what you will find inside is, of course, setting up the context. So you all are bankers. So KYC is the most used term. So KYC is the most used word when you want to know your customer. Here I'm using a word KYS, meaning that know your system first. Then what is information security? Systems audit. What are the RBI guidelines? Because they are most relevant. then what should be the approach and methodology, and of course followed by some real life examples or the typical risks that we see. Let me start with a story. Everyone loves story because I think that will help us understand better. We must have heard this story of 7 blind or blindfolded people and an elephant. And the one who is, let's say, touching the tusk of the elephant, he feels that it's a spear. The other one who is touching the trunk, he feels that it's a snake. The other one who is touching the feet, he feels that it's a tree. The person who is touching the body of the elephant feels that it's like a huge wall. Person touching the tail feels that it's a rope. Person touching the ears feels that it's a fan. But none of them are actually able to see the complete animal, right? So here, if I'm applying the same thing to the systems, the people who are in charge of, let's say, database, the database administrators feel that it is only about the data. The people who are in charge of, let's say, the operating systems, they feel that it's all about the operating system. So they are administrators. The people who are application owners feels that the system is only about the applications. The people who are actually having a stake in that, they feel, it's all about the risks. But none of them are actually seeing the complete animal. And only when you see the complete animal, you will be able to understand it, better protect it also, and make best use out of it as well. So applying the same analogy over here, I am just depicted a small example just to draw an analogy that suppose everyone shops on, let's say, Amazon, and the system, when we say that it is made up of so many factors, so many things. For example, so basically there will be a marketplace like Amazon where the sellers will be able to put their products. People like us, the consumers, will go and search for a particular product, compare it, and then purchase it. At the back office, what will happen is there will be two things to it. One is the payment side, and the other one is the actual shipment of the goods that you have ordered. And the whole thing is made up of so many people, so many vendors, and so many subsystems like that. System has got, as you can see on the right hand side, it can have the users. The users can be the actual organization users, inside users, or it can be the vendors, it can be the customers, and all business partners as well. Then you will have data, you will have applications. The applications will be hosted on the servers, so they are called as host. The databases also will be hosted on the servers. Then there will be a network which will connect things together and will enable the messages or the information to flow from one computer to another, be it within the organization or outside the organization. There will be a perimeter defined for your own organization in terms of a firewall. I'll talk about a firewall a little later. Then there will be a physical place where these servers are actually hosted, actually kept, and the policies, procedures, all those things which are governing the things. So all these things, if you see, will make a system. It is not only the data, it is not only the administrator, it is not only the application that makes the system. So making another second level of deeper view, I can say, the system is made up of, let's say, few components. Okay, my aim is not to teach the hardware as such, but at least these terms I felt that one should be knowing. So that we'll understand what is the utility of that particular component and how it is actually placed into the system. And then only we'll find out how the risks are there and how the controls can be placed. So there are computers, of course, as you can see over here. Then there is something which is called as a router, which will route the signals, internet. Then there is a firewall, which will protect or allow, it's like a gatekeeper, it will allow certain messages to come in and certain messages it will drop based on the rules that you have defined into that. Then there will be a data center. You will have so many servers in that, and there will be a DR site, there will be a branch office. So if you talk about a system, you will, or if you are on an auditee side or an auditor side, you will say that, okay, what is the assets, the information assets, because this is where the information is stored. Like if I'm talking about the database servers, this is where the information is stored. And these days, as you know, that the information has become an asset. The other things, which are these routers or firewalls, they just facilitate the communication nonetheless, because if you want that particular transaction to get through, you need all these components as well. So there are two things. One is where the data is stored, where the applications are hosted, and the other part is the network, which facilitates the exchange of information. To make this particular systems more complicated these days, you have some things on premises. That means under your own custody, under your nose. But there could be cloud environments. I'm not going again very deep into that. But when there are clouds, people generally say that you can always expect the thunders as well, because the things are very new and people are trying to take advantage of these technologies. All said and done, it will not be directly under your custody. So this is what is making the information systems more complex. Yet another level of deep dive into the system. I hope you enjoy this particular diagram. I have made it with certain things in my mind because you can relate to this diagram when I'll be talking about the cyber attacks as well. Now, what I have depicted over here is, as you have seen, I'm taking you back to the slide where I have mentioned about these components. Can you see here that this is the internet and these are the routers, firewalls? Now, just imagine that you are getting another zoomed view inside this. It will be looking something like this. Right? So imagine that this is your computer and this is, say, Mitesh's computer, and I want to send him a message, welcome to the world of internet. Now, this machine has got some address which is called as a IP address, Internet Protocol address. It is difficult to remember, but you can always say that it is a 12-digit number in the group of 3. There are 4 numbers, actually 4 groups of numbers, total 12 digits. IP4. With IP6, of course, there will be a different naming convention. Fortunately, we don't have to remember the IP address, but as every one of us have got a unique address or a unique number, unique identification, every machine on the internet will also have a unique number. Now, whenever he wants to send a message, for the sake of explanation, I have just split it into the words that I have used. That is, as you can see over here, it is welcome is in pack. Can you see here? Welcome to the world of internet. So I've just split it into 6 words. In reality, it's based on bytes or bits. Okay. So in packet 1, let's say the word welcome. In packet 2, you can say that there is a word which is TO2 is kept. So in packet 3, it is the 4 world, 5 off, and 6 internet. Computer doesn't understand English. It understands only zeros and ones, or maybe you can say on and off conditions, right? But then after this English-like thing, it then gets converted to something hexadecimal, and then from hexadecimal to bits and bytes, and then to the electric signals. And each packet is actually kept in envelope, one envelope into another envelope, and then it is actually thrown onto the internet. Can you see here the blue color packets? So all 6 packets will leave the computer, but it may take different paths. What I mean by that is, from this computer, let's say this package is going this way. I hope you are able to see the mouse moving, the arrow moving.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Now here another one will go maybe like this. So the path is not known. It will take the shortest or the path of least resistance. And again, at the receiver's end, all these 6 packets will be put together and Mitesh will be able to read the signal. Every touch point, that is, say, let's say that this package is reaching here, it will put a footprint. It will have a footprint of it, and that is called as a log. It has got a huge significance when I'll be discussing about cyberspace. So it will have a footprint here. If it is going this way, then it will have every blue color component that I have mentioned over here. Everywhere it will have a footprint, okay? And it will have, in this connected world, the information travels as a packet and they follow certain protocols, okay? So this is the 3rd level of view I have given. Still more complex. You don't have to understand this nitty-gritties, but what I'm trying to say is how it happens. We sometimes wonder, right, how it happens. So basically, every computer or every, what I can say, component has got certain doors and windows, let's say, we put it in very simple terms. Like how we have our doors to our houses and the windows so that we can see what is going on outside, or we can go outside, somebody can come inside. Like that, for every computer, you will have certain ports. Those doors or windows are called as ports. And the number is huge. It is 2 to the power of 16. So it is 65536, and that is what makes the whole thing complex. So you have got so many doors, in our house, maybe we are having a maximum 1 or 2 doors. So one is the main door, and then maybe the other one is the alternate door. But here you have got so many doors and so many services that are associated with each of this port. That is what makes it a complex situation. But it is not all that difficult also, right? Why? Because if you just apply logic and then you sit with your, say, CIO or CISO, and you say that, okay, give me the list of assets that we have. Go and visit the data center or a disaster recovery site. See that whether the same assets that are listed are present over there, and then literally take a pencil or a pen and then try to trace out for a given business process or sub-process, how the information is moving. Once you understand that path, you will be able to understand the touch points and then what risks it will have in at those touch points. And that should be the beginning of the whole exercise. You be the auditor or you be the auditee, whatever it is. Am I going too fast?
So I have a small question that when you say touch point, does
it? No, not ports. At a device level to start with. At a device level. So, because if we go deep inside, we may get lost at this moment. So what we will do is we will try to understand. You have a network diagram with you, the one as I showed over here, something like this.
Yeah.
You can see here. At least from here, try to make. Try to understand how the data is moving, because in a banking environment, in the bigger banks or commercial scheduled banks as such, they have got hundreds of applications, and it is so difficult to understand how they are linked with each other. So if I'm starting, so we'll go a step at a time in a deep, to take a deep dive. Right now, we are just trying to understand for a given business process, let's say for a loan process in a bank or for a treasury process in a bank, which all are the applications that are used, where they are stored, how the data is moving. Is it like, getting accessed from the outside of the environment? The other partners are also there. Is it physically stored in your environment, or is it in an outsourced data center, or is it on a cloud? So at that stage, at least we'll understand first, and then we will slowly, as I move to the cybersecurity, we will talk more about the ports and services at that point in time. Right now, all that I'm trying to say is take a business process, try to see which all are the applications that are involved into that, try to see how they're interfaced with each other, track one transaction and see how and what all components it is touching at the network diagram level. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
I have a query. These touch points includes APIs also integrated into this, or they are
API? You said API? You said
APIs, yeah.
Yeah, API are the connection points. So they are the conduits, I can say. APIs are, suppose if there is a database and the data is also coming from some external sources, or if there are two applications which are talking to each other, they will be connected with some connection, right? That connection, in case of, say, web applications or in case of mobile applications, typically called as APIs. So definitely, I mean, that it touches that particular piece of software as well. Yeah. And sometimes when it's a thick client environment, it can be a simple connection, or there can be a middleware installed in that. Even that we need to consider. We cannot skip that. And many times what happens is these are the small areas which we generally don't pay attention to, are the ones which are vulnerable. APIs should be considered. Yes. Can I move on?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, clarified.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing, as I mentioned to you, that we have to understand where the assets are kept, which are the applications that are required for a particular process. Apart from that, we have to talk, or we have to also understand about IT processes also. If you really have to understand the risks that are there, what are the processes? Say there could be a production IT. So in case of, let's say, a banking environment, it could be a web application, a mobile application, core banking solution, etc. And for the enterprise IT means your own payroll system, your own attendance system, your own employee self-service portal, something like that. Okay. So each of these systems again will have certain processes which are IT related processes associated with that. And these processes, if they are not handled properly, they also may pose some challenges. So when you're talking about applications used in business, certain things would be like the business rules are integrated into the application, and the certain other operations are as a part of IT operations as such. So business operations as well as IT operations. The application should have appropriate number of business rules, but when it is getting maintained, it should also follow the IT processes, which I have depicted over here, starting with, let's say, the user management, change management, the BOD, EOD processes, the BCP drills, patch management, backup, capacity. So these are the various areas. If you go by ISO 27001 standard, which is a de facto standard for information security, you will find around 14 to 17 areas, depending upon how you want to club, that you will find out, and the risks that are there for each of the process or each of the domain, that also you can find out, and what you should be doing to mitigate those risks, that also you will be able to find out in that. So the whole thing, as I have mentioned right now, that thinking about the business, how those businesses are mapped to the applications in your environment, where these applications are getting stored, where the data is being stored, how your HO, your business partners, your customers, how they are talking to your systems, what are the access methods for that. Based on that, then we should be moving to the risk assessment, and from the risk assessment, then to the controls, and then from controls to the controls testing. So this is what I meant when I said, linking it to the story that I just mentioned to you, that unless we understand the whole animal, it is really very difficult to identify where the risks could be and where we really have to implement the controls. If we don't do that, what will happen is you may end up spending more, or you may end up not attending to certain risks. Okay, that FUD and FOMO that I just mentioned to you, that it is not that, you know, that one particular bank or one particular organization has implemented thing, we have to have that. Not necessary. You may have to assess it, the risks in your own environment, and then accordingly, you have to apply the control measures. As we say that it's a risk-based approach and a business-centric approach. So to have that approach in your mind very fixed, I mean, to have that understanding the whole system, which is people, process, and technology. So I talked about the technology part of it at a very high level, of course, and I think for today's session, or for understanding, that should be adequate. As we move further, as we go on, you know, exploring the methods that I have just explained to you, you can have a deep dive into that, and then maybe go down to the ports and services level as well. After the technology, we talked about the processes and the people. Okay, now people, if I'm a systems auditor, so for the people, we assume that it's 100% integrity, because the person with anything less should not be there in the system. However, there is no way or no technology today to identify such a person. So we believe that any person who is the part of the system is 100% integrity is there, but to the system, it is a user. So we talk about the users more than a person. So our reports or our entire approach will never be focusing on the person as such, but it will be definitely focusing more and more about the user. Why user? Because user having access to the system, whether authorized or unauthorized, is a way to reach the data. And hence, apart from anything else, like for example, the other processes that I have depicted over here, the user management, I can say, you can apply the principle of 80-20. So it is 80% of the risks are coming from the user management and change management. So you can understand the importance of user. But just to clarify, when we talk about system, it is people, process, and technology. For the people, for today's discussion, and generally in our audits, we talk user in terms of people in terms of only the user, not the personal traits or personal behavior as such. But yes, these days there are certain AIs that are there which are able to understand the behavior anomalies as well. So leaving that apart, for the systems audit purposes or this today's discussion, we will say that people means user of the systems. I'm just moving ahead. Any doubts so far?
No, yeah, I think we can move.
Yeah. So this is the picture of future connected world. Everything will have every element, everything that we use will have some element of intelligence embedded into that, some circuit. And with that, more and more, if they get compromised, then everyone will be asking for money. You know, you can see the refrigerator over here. You are able to see the light. You are able to see the broom. You are able to see the oven, microwave oven, grill. There are, so many things. Door closure. Everything will be asking for money if we are really not able to protect our own systems. So this is Internet of Things, or maybe we can say Internet of ransomware things. So the picture, it may look little scary at this moment, and this is the challenge that we want to overcome. This is precisely the challenge that we want to overcome. That tomorrow, if we have to stay in a connected world. Going back to the Stone Age is not the remedy anyway. So if we want to stay in this connected world and protect ourselves and our families and our businesses, then what we should be doing. And this is where the information security comes into the picture. So as I have mentioned to you, information has become an asset. Confidentiality, CIA triad, which we call it as confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are called as the pillars of information security. Confidentiality is giving the restricted access to the data, which is based on the principle of least privileges and segregation of duties. Integrity is the information is not tampered when it is traveling or stored in the databases or in backups. Availability means making sure that the information is available to right people at the right time and in the right form. And the privacy, there is a slight difference between confidentiality and privacy. The confidentiality is all about the data, whereas privacy is about the person. Now this is in this year, I can say the bankers or I think there is some background. Yeah, thank you. So this is the area, privacy is the area which privacy, and I was talking about the banks in this year or maybe in coming 1 or 2 years would be focusing more on the privacy protection as such, because the confidentiality is about the data. Privacy is about the person. And since the banks are handling financial data, which is considered as a sensitive data, I think they have to take measures when the act will come. Right now it is in a draft stage, but when the act will come, that point in time, the banks have to take major remediations to comply with that act. So privacy is one of the area, because most of the banks I can see because of RBI regulations, especially the bigger banks, they are in a good shape of information security. Of course, there could be certain incidences, but that doesn't mean that the entire security should be questioned. Having said that, there will be always a opportunity to improve upon whatever is there or whatever is missed so far. And how do we identify those subtle things, that also I'll be talking in the next session as such. But privacy is something that is not thought of when the designing of the applications and storing of data was considered. So with that, there could be a revamp in the design of certain processes or design of certain applications or the way in which the data is stored. So privacy is one such area for the banks that they should be concentrating on. And there is another way, which is like the cybersecurity frameworks and risk assessments. So IT risk assessment is one part of it. Cyber risk assessment is yet another part. I think these are the two things that banking industry should pay attention to as far as information systems security is concerned. So we have to keep in mind these four things: confidentiality, integrity, availability, and privacy of the data. Although the Act for Privacy is not yet effective in India, we are moving towards that. So if we are prepared, then I think it will help us in future definitely. So how do we secure the systems? By implementing appropriate controls and defense in depth. Had it been so simple, right? I mean, in this picture, there are maybe hundreds of controls that are implemented. They're shown over here at different levels, right from the physical, maybe the cloud security, then the perimeter security, the network security, the host security, endpoint, application, and the critical asset, that is systems and data, that is data and applications. And you can see, I'm not reading this diagram. I just wanted to show that it's not that easy that implement the controls. It's not that easy, right? Because there are so many things and so many every day, so many new products are coming. For auditor, I may say that it's easy, but for the implementers, it is even more difficult to choose a right product and to implement right kind of a control. So having said that, there are so many controls. I mean, hundreds and thousands of controls, I can say. And you have to implement those, and then which actually puts a cost. There is a cost associated to each of the control. When they are automated, there is whole reliance on that. And if the automated control fails, it has a very huge impact. So you have to keep on monitoring. Again, the monitoring has a cost. So it's a cyclic story. I can say that, it's a never ending kind of a thing, that you implement certain things. By that time, the risks and the hackers, they move ahead, and then again you have to do certain changes or implement a new control. And that is the ongoing story for information security or cyber security. Now I'm talking about why do we audit? I mean, there could be some people in this audience that they are the auditors, or there could be some people who are the auditee, or who are responsible for the governance of information system. So for both of them, I think this is applicable, although the title of the slide is why audit the systems. It is for everyone. I mean, why audit, what auditor should do, or what he should give assurance on, and what the auditee expects. So it is basically, if I'm talking about banks or the listed banks, I can say that internal financial controls are very important. Apart from that, since RBI has given so many directions, abiding to that compliance should be there. So various kinds of audits and hundreds of audits again are conducted throughout the year in any given bank. Generally, the aim is, or the objective is, to ensure that the completeness is there. Because as I've mentioned to you, that in a given banking environment for a given process, there could be multiple applications that are used. It is not the whole transaction is not getting processed in one application. There could be multiple applications, and hence multiple people accessing it from multiple locations. So the information, when it is moving from one place to another, from one application to another, or from one computer to another, the completeness of that information has to be ensured. So apart from CIA and privacy, as I mentioned, these are the additional things which are generally expected out of the systems audit. And then second thing is the validity. Now let's talk about an example over here, not the computer example, just a general example in our day-to-day life. For example, you are booking a ticket, let's say a airplane ticket you are booking, and you see the number of seats available on a particular flight on a particular day. And you assume that if you are going to book the same ticket after a few days, you're assuming that the vacancy would be still there. That may not be the case. So the data that was true, fair, complete at one given point in time may not be really valid as you move ahead in time. So what is the validity of the data that is being processed? So suppose there is an internet banking transaction and I'm paying say 1,000 rupees to my sister. If that is getting debited to my account, but if she is not getting the credit, how do I validate that particular transaction, right? The third point is how the system is identifying, authenticating, and authorizing the user. Now, these are the three terms which are very, very, very important, I can say. As I've mentioned to you earlier, people, process, and technology make the system. The people part of it, the people behavior, people intention, people skill, I'm not talking about that. So for me, as an auditor of a systems, it is the user who is doing the whole thing. When the user is identified to the system, that means a username, password, two-factor authentication. So there are three things that we do, or three categories: something that you know, something that you are, and something that you have. Okay, so something that you are is, let's say, retina scan, face recognition, and those kind of identification. Something that you have could be a two-factor authentication dongle or a key that you have, or a card that you may have. And the third one, something that you know, that means a username and a password, or maybe some OTP or something like that. So these are the three different ways. Any combination thereof can be used to identify a user to a system. When the systems are more critical, the level of identification is deeper. So what I mean by that is, suppose if it's a internet banking transactions, usually along with username and password, OTP is asked for. So it's truly not two-factor authentication, but I can say it is two-level authentication. But sometimes when you are digitally signing a document, apart from your username, password, and the other stuff that you have submitted while you have identified yourself to the authorities, the dongle is required, and you have to key in the password for that dongle. So these are the two factors: something that you know, the password, and the dongle itself, which is something that you have. Retina scan, I have already mentioned to you, the face recognition. So this is how you are identifying. Now the system needs to authenticate you also, right? So system should have something counter reference over there so that it can identify you and authenticate you. Yeah, you are the person who it has been registered. That is called as authentication. And then authentication has an authorization. That means after you identify yourself as a legitimate user, what you can do in the system is an authorization. I'll give you a very simple example, a banking example. Let's say we have there's locker room in the bank. Some of the branches have that. When a person is actually taking a locker, he has to submit certain details, the form, the photograph, signature, etc. Then when you actually want to operate that locker, you have to go to the bank, you have to identify yourself, you have a key to that locker. The bank manager will come to you, the bank personnel will come with you to the locker room, and he will take you over there. He will have a master key. So he will try to open that locker. With your key, you will also open it. And if it matches, the combination matches, then only the locker will open. Because you are an identified user, you cannot operate any locker in the locker room. Because the manager has got a master key, he cannot open anything in the locker room, right? So this is how you are identifying, you are authenticated, and you are authorized only to operate a particular locker which is assigned to you. So this is how you can, I think, remember and give, as I mentioned to you earlier also, 80% of the weightage is to user and change management, because this is the way you will be reaching to the data, to the asset of your company's information systems as such. So after that, the accuracy, I mean, needless to say, The data has to be accurate. So when you're processing the data, when the reports are getting generated, you have to see that whatever was keyed in, whatever was processed into that application, whether it is getting reflected in the reports that are submitted or not. In some of the applications, if they are not tested properly or not written properly, it may happen that a trial balance is giving a particular result when it is processed today, and after 10 minutes when you process it again, it is giving you some different kind of results. I have seen this happening. The accuracy of reports, and in IFC or in SOX kind of testing, the accuracy of reports is really very important, because that is where from there the business decisions are taken. So how you input the data into the system, how the system processes it, how the interfaces operate are also important. So also the end result, which are the reports. So accuracy of the reports, the relevance of the reports, the validity, the completeness is absolutely integrity. It's already mentioned earlier. Then whenever you feed the data into the system, nobody else is changing that data in an unauthorized manner. What happens is many a times the application has got the checks inbuilt into it. But for some reasons, the companies, the banks, they may have to change the data directly. What I mean by that, you're bypassing the application and reaching directly to the database and doing the changes in certain tables or certain rows of the tables directly. What happens is the banking applications or applications are usually very complex. You make an entry in a particular table, you forget to make an entry in another corresponding table, it is bound to give you the wrong results. So also whenever you are actually doing the file uploads or whenever the systems are interfaced with each other. So in case of file upload, again, what happens, whatever business rules and validations you have implemented in the applications are bypassed. So this is another area where one should keep an eye on and very critically needs to be monitored is direct data entry. That means direct database update, as we call it. The file uploads, manual file uploads, or the interfaces. If the interfaces are automated, if the interfaces are newly introduced into the system, test it thoroughly in the test environment that whatever data you are putting in, taking it from one application, putting it in another application, it is going in a safe manner, completely, correctly in a given time period. This is so because there is one application. Let's say there is a application for credit card and the data has to move to CBS, let's say Oracle. Okay, so or whichever application EBS you are using. Now, suppose the data structure of your card system is different and the data structure of your EBS is different. So the XYZ from say card system data has to move to ABC into your EBS system. There is a possibility that the data field names are different. You can imagine the Excel in front of your eyes to understand this further. Say, let's talk about Excel. So there is one Excel, there is another Excel. Okay. In one Excel, the columns are named as ABC. In another Excel, they are named as XYZ. In one Excel, the field, the length of the field is, let's say 40. In another one, it is less, let's say 25. In one, the date type of data is stored in a particular manner, that is say DDMMYY. In another one, it is MMDDYYYY. So there are the length, the type can be different. And that is where the interface writing becomes very, very important. And this is the point somebody had asked me the question about APIs. This is where the APIs or interfaces play a very big role at the designing stage and at the testing stage. After that, it is the automated kind of flow. So you don't have to really worry about it later on unless the structure at either of the systems is changed. So this is what about the integrity. And the last but not the least is about the logs, that is traceability. I have already mentioned to you about tracing a particular transaction across the systems, across the applications that you are using. And at every stage, it will leave a footprint, which is called as a log. And you have to ensure that that log captures adequate information about who has actually done that transaction, at what time, if possible, from which machine, and at what time. Okay, so that is called as a traceability. This is required because suppose if something goes wrong, some incident takes place, be it a information security incident, be it a cyber security incident, be it a breach or a fraud, then you have to go back and investigate. And when you are actually investigating, these logs or these footprints would be of extremely use to you, and they are also can be admitted in the court of law as an evidence. But you have to show that they are not tampered and they are kept safely. And that is the importance of logs. So generally during the operations, people don't pay much of an attention to logs. They just say, oh, we have got logs with our systems. But what you have to see, the two very important elements, whether all the logs, when they are getting recorded, especially the time along with the data, whether the time is synchronized or not. And the second one is till what point of time they are being stored and who is accessing it. What I mean by that, if your firewall logs are being stored, let's say, for the sake of example, let's say you are storing it, or because of the capacity that is available, they are getting stored for 1 month, and your server logs are getting stored for 15 days. And your application logs are getting stored for 3 months. Now, there is a difference, right? There is a possibility that when you are actually tracing back, we are tracing back the data, because data may not be adequate. I mean, at that point in time, the log was recorded, but now because of the size of the logs that it is storing, it may not be adequate. So the forensic readiness is another area which I think this is of course my view, that one should pay attention to. It is already mentioned in the directive from RBI 2011, which I'll be mentioning it in few slides from. So this is about why one should be doing the audit, be the auditor or be the auditee. Generally the objectives are given, which are common. I mean, anyone who wants to give a reasonable assurance needs to have a CIA, privacy, then the completeness, validity, the proper authentication, identification, authorization, accuracy of the transactions, integrity, including the direct database updates, file uploads and interfaces, and the traceability. I'll just wait here for a minute.
Ma'am, what could be the reasons for the integrity issue? Right? Because getting the data right is very important.
Yeah. The issues, as I have mentioned to you, so whenever the two applications are integrated with each other, there could be multiple ways of doing that. One is there is a middle level application, that is middleware it is called as, it is there. So you can imagine a straw, it is a conduit, right? So there is one application and it has got its own database structure. The database is made up of so many tables, so many fields. Each of the field will have a type, a length, and a name associated with that, okay? Now, what happens is when you're moving a data from one application to another application, I gave you the example of, let's say, a credit card system and your EBS. Obviously, the database design of your credit card system and the EBS system is different. And it may not be one-to-one also. It's not necessary that the data which is coming from, let's say, one source is going only to a particular field of a particular table. It can go to multiple tables, multiple fields also. That's what makes the things complex. So if this is not properly thought of, what data should move from one system to another? What are the types? I also mentioned the example of length. Let's say that in your card system, your name is captured in 40 characters. And when it is going to EBS, I'm just giving you the example, it is going as a 25 character field. That means your name is actually truncated, right?
Yeah.
In future, it may not be able to identify a transaction properly. Or I gave you the example of date type. In a particular, say in credit card, it is MMDDYY, and in EBS, it is DDMMYY. And it may, or if it is not handled properly, it will cause a problem. So that is one level of integrity. Second one, because of certain,
I got it.
Okay. So this line you can read where I've written the direct data entry, file uploads, or the interfaces. That will make you understand why it is. And the second thing I mentioned about the business rules, they are completely bypassed, and hence you have to pay a lot of attention when you are transferring that.
So, ma'am, integrity become more important when we have a vendor system. So when we acquire some system from.
It is important anyway. I mean, because any system that you are connecting with each other, be it vendor system or be it your own, if you have a clarity about the table structure, data structure of the vendor and your own system, it is equally important. I mean, be it your own systems also, vendor also, or your own homegrown systems also. So that becomes, so in APIs or the file uploads or the middleware, this is the area where you have to pay attention. And the direct database updates, because of sometimes a certain correction needs to be done because of technological glitches or otherwise, you are bypassing all the rules. So when you are doing I can connect this again, the data migrations, because in banking environment, I have seen that every year, at least 1 or 2 applications which are very, very important from IFC's perspective, they change. And let me tell you, data migration is a nightmare. It's not easy to migrate the data from one application to another. So in that sense, I have not covered that topic over here right now, but it is also, I mean, this integrity is also applicable whenever you are changing the application itself. So keep that in mind, that you're bypassing all the rules apart from, transferring the data, whatever rules you have built up into the application's front end. Whenever a user, I mentioned to you, right, identification, authentication, authorization, traceability, everything is bypassed when you are actually trying to change the data from the backend, or you are uploading the file, or you are having an interface. So you have to keep that in mind. The short answer is you have to build all the controls which are otherwise there in the application into the files or the interface.
Yeah, Rucha, this is Sandeep here. Just one question, quick question. Since we are heading towards digital, and when you are talking of fields from one field to an application which has the other field, the length of the field and the characters, what happens if there are reports which come in the form of a PDF document instead of Excel spreadsheet, which is completely, not in talking terms in terms of the systems itself. Then how does that work to actually match the whole thing? Because AI doesn't really, give that type of a match. We'll have to have some other way of getting this done.
Yeah, if I have understood your question properly, you are saying that you are having certain reports with you, which are in PDF, and simultaneously you are having some data in your database, and you want to compare that. Is that right?
That's right. I'll tell you an example, because pick up an industry, for example, a MFI industry, and I'm having data for the MFI industry as a whole. And the formats of the MFI balance sheets might be different, and they'll be submitting it to us in the form of for example, a PDF document. How are we to actually pick up those PDF documents, convert that into an Excel, and authenticate and get that verified in terms of accuracy?
Okay. So the first step, I'll answer your first question. How do you convert that to Excel? There are applications or tools available which are called as IDEA tools. If you might have heard about it. Another tool is ACL, but I use IDEA to that extent, and we convert the PDF files to Excels. So your first problem can be answered by way of using the tool. These days, IDEA also comes with the the macros, you can say. I mean, the closest example that I can give is you can write a code. Very easily, you can write a code into this tool so that you can, every time you get a balance sheet, you can convert it into Excel very quickly. So that is your first part of it.
Right.
The second one is you are saying that how do you authenticate or compare that with the data in the system, right?
Yeah, and mainly because the formats which are given by the companies might be completely different, in the sense that, the liabilities shown, the headings which are shown are completely different in terms of each company.
So I'm not sure like whether you're using a system right now or you're just using the Excels to do the comparison.
No, we want to upload it in a system. We'll pick it up in a Excel spreadsheet and then upload in a system.
I think, I mean, I don't have a ready answer for that, but I think your IDEA tool will be able to help you out with that, along with something which is called as a robotic process automation.
Okay.
So that, so one, if you feel that IDEA is suitable for doing this conversion, and I'm sure IDEA has those features, I have used it extensively.
Okay.
But if I'm understanding it correctly, you are saying that different balance sheets will have a different, slightly different headings or the formats. So for each of that, if they're going to come to you periodically, you can write a macros, and then you can automate the whole process once it is stable in the test environment, and then upload the data into the system. That should be possible.
Okay, great.
Yeah, IDEA is the tool. You can check it on the internet also. Caseware is the company which has got a distribution license for that.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So Rucha, Mitesh here. The PDF will include both the system-based PDF as well as the paper scan PDF, right? For in IDEA.
No. In IDEA, it is not OCR. Optical character recognition is not there. For that, we may have to do something different. I'm assuming the machine generated PDF.
Yeah. So here it is machine generated.
Yeah. I mean,
Madam, I have got one question. I am Dr. Narendra.
Yes, sir.
This is relating to currently people are working from home. So that staff are and all, particularly in the banking sector. So one is what type of safety, security, and what type of, to ensure the system integrity or external attack or virus attack, all that can be ensured. Similarly, in the current COVID period, we saw globally a lot of cyber attacks and hacking and even personal data breaches. In the case of debit card, credit card, maybe internet banking. So I think you are also from bank. So what type of safety values are firewalls, and how are we to protect the customers' data and also ensure the confidence level of the customers?
Sure, sir.
Mr. Narendra, I would just mention, Mr. Narendra is an expert. He is the independent director in top international houses. He has been ex-chairman of Indian Banking Association, IBA, and who brought the IBA to the forefront of the globe. India growth story. And he has been a chairman of several banks and director of very banks and a very eminent professional on committees of top trade and industry body.
And whatever it may be, Madam is doing the presentation very well, and good coverage from the basic to the higher level.
Yes,
I think she has been, in fact, we need 2-3 hours of her presentation, then we can understand much more better and well knowledgeable. And I think, Madam, you are in the bank only, no?
No, sir, I'm an auditor actually.
Auditor. So bank has to be really take your services.
Yeah.
You are very genius that way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. And I'm really fortunate that I got an opportunity to talk to you. So actually, as a part of this series, I'll be covering this.
Okay, then we'll wait for that later.
Yeah, but to answer your question in 2 minutes, generally in banks, what we have seen. So as I've said, like I'm an auditor. I'm not on the auditee side or not in the implementation as well.
Right.
Talking from that angle, what I have seen in the organizations, because we are also currently auditing some organizations from this perspective. So one is like the policy and procedures. I'm starting with that. The teleworking policy and bring your own device, BYOD as it is called as. That is first, that is needed. Second one, the NDA. Third one, very important and generally not paid attention to, is the area of awareness, that you have to really educate your employees about the threats that could be there, and also sensitize them if they are accessing the systems from their houses, which they were otherwise doing it from within the bank. So these are the two levels. After that, coming to the technical level controls, most of the offices that I have seen have given access through a secure VPN, virtual private network.
Correct.
So when they're using a virtual private networks, what happens is, although the person might be using a laptop and from their own houses, moment they enter inside a VPN, they're practically inside the system itself. So what happens is every log gets captured as, I mean, it is the same. So if you have a two-factor authentication, if you have a machine binding, as it is called as IP binding or machine IP binding, done at a firewall level or at a switch level or at a router level.
Yeah, please.
So if you have two-factor authentication, so apart from VPN, apart from your sensitizing the people awareness, NDA policy, if you have got two-factor authentication, that means the machine that I'm using currently, the laptop from my house, the IP of that, or the machine ID, as it is called as MAC ID, it is called as, if it is locked to the rules which are written on the firewall or the router of your system, that means that no other person can use that and they have to follow the same path. So this is what one can think of in terms of having the access remotely.
And as per as the auditing system, you carry some your own created some tools, or how do you, when you go for an audit system, you have self-developed or maybe market related, or because some of your tool, when we apply to our system, then it should pass through the security test also.
Yeah. So there are two ways. I mean, since I'm talking only about the systems audit. In systems audit, we really don't need any tool as such. We have different approaches which I'll be talking about, which I can say are specific to us, and we have developed that. But these are approaches and methodologies. Tools, apart from if I have to analyze big data, then generally IDEA suffices. If I'm talking about the vulnerability assessment penetration testing, which is the domain in cybersecurity as such, yes, there are tools. We have to take a formal permission from the banks or the organization when we are deploying it on their environment, that they are the licensed tools and non-invasive. And we get the result out of it. Whenever we want to do further testing, and which we feel that could harm to the system, we say that you give us a replica in the test environment, so that we can explore it in a better manner. So we do use the tools. There are some standard tools that are used. Nessus is one of them. And then there are some penetration testing tools, like you actually act as a hacker, but in a ethical manner, with the knowledge of the bank and within the given scope. If you find something which is alarming but lying outside the scope of the that is given to you, you discuss it with the bank authorities and then only explore. So that's what I mean by ethical hacking. You just don't go on exploiting till the system breaks. It's not like that. It is like you go step by step. You feel that, okay, these are the things, then they rectify it and then you test it again. So that's a separate set of tools that would be required for that. Separate tools are required for analysis of data and certain approaches and methodologies to understand the subtle risks that are there.
Okay, madam. Very nice of you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move to the next slide. Now, this point onward, I'm talking about the RBI's guidelines applied for the systems audit. cyber, I will take it later on, of course, but for even for the systems audit, they have released this working group guidelines. I have also given the reference of that at the bottom of the slide. Very exhaustive document, I should say, and although it is almost 10-year-old document, you will definitely find something different, something new as when you compare it in your own environment, or when you compare it with the current issues that are going on in that. So I request everyone who is actually in charge of the governance in the banks to go through this document, exhaustive documents, and then you can compare it till to what extent it has been implemented in your environment as such. So it covers IT governance, that is having various committees, roles, responsibilities, accountability. It talks about the information security, which are the processes, as I've mentioned to you, IT assets, HR, physical, environmental, access control, network, software development, incident, business continuity, disaster recovery as such. It also mentions about how the audit should be conducted. What is the general accepted practice, I can say, and how the bank can expect the IS auditor to conduct the audit. Even that is mentioned. IT operations, if you remember that slide wherein I have given 3 sets of operations as far as the production IT is concerned, enterprise IT is concerned, and the CISO operations are concerned. So they are covered over here. The vendors, which generally pose some risk because they are not working directly in your environment. How do you take care of that in your SLAs? How do you monitor the SLAs? Because people say that you can always outsource the work, but not the responsibility. So you have to keep that in mind. Whenever some guidelines are coming, especially in case of, let's say, the cybersecurity guidelines are coming from RBI, the C-site as we call it, just ensure that if they are applicable to your outsourced vendors, intimate them and ask them to abide by that as well, so that you can get that assurance that things are under control to the extent possible. I'll talk about cyber frauds little later. The business continuity, again, in a pandemic situation like this, nobody thought that people have to move to the DR site and then stay there for an extended period of time. So you may have to take a relook at your business continuity assumptions and tweak the plan if it is required. You also have to, I have a very interesting example over here. People say that our recovery time objective, what do you mean by recovery time objective, is the time from when a disaster is declared to you keep the systems up. So till that point, suppose some disaster happens, let's say at 11 o'clock in the morning, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that is in 4 hours, you are able to up all the systems that are required for your functioning, which is like depending on the outcome of your business impact analysis. In banking environment, what we have seen is, because the number of applications are huge. I mean, I have seen ranging it from for the scheduled banks from 100 to 400, 500 also sometimes. I mean, that's really huge. You have to identify how many of these applications actually you want to bring up. It cannot be like all 500 applications going up in 4 hours time, not possible, or may not be possible. So you really have to think that which applications you are talking about. And the best part is, it is called as the recovery time objective is from the point when the disaster is declared. What happens before that? So suppose there is a disaster, there is some fire unfortunately, and the decision has to be taken. From that point, the fire will not wait for you to take the decision. Fire will it will be there. From that point, when the disaster happened, till you actually declare the disaster, that point is very critical, because your IT will not start unless you declare the disaster. I hope I'm able to reach you. What I mean is, there are 2 time frames over here. One is you declare the disaster, and the IT will help you to bring up the systems. That is what is covered in BCP. But the time when the disaster happens till the disaster is actually declared, there are so many things happening. And with this mobile phones these days, and the media peeping nose everywhere, there will be so many different messages, or sometimes distorted messages going here and there. You really need to know, especially the people who are in charge of this governance, they need to know what exactly has happened. What information do they need to make this decision, whether to declare this as a disaster or not. That is very important. So we had given some inputs to CII type of institute, which is the critical information infrastructure, like exchanges and all those type of people. And they have taken it really very seriously, and they said that it has helped them. So what should happen when the disaster happens, till the point the disaster is declared or disaster is not declared, whatever, to arrive at that decision. That point time is called as MAD. Actually, it is maddening only. MAD is maximum allowable time. So maximum allowable time and recovery time objective, recovery point objective are three different things. Just pay attention to your business continuity document and understand whether these things are taken care of in that. And the second one is as I mentioned to you, that in banking environment, there could be so many applications, and the applications will have some dependencies also because of the interfaces. You really have to think about what is the RTO, that is recovery time objective for individual application, or maybe as a business segment as such, because overall 4 hours or overall 3 hours may not suffice. Frankly speaking, the business continuity tests or drills that are conducted are structured. Many a times the people who are sitting in the HO, they only operate the machines that are at the disaster recovery site. So pay attention to these small things, because what we want is the plan should really function when the things go wrong. So to that, one suggestion from my side as an auditor, or based on my experience, is that the MAD, that you have to keep it in mind, very easy to remember, because that's crazy, because it's something, unforeseen, so disturbing. There's a loss if you don't attend to it in a proper manner. So what should happen when something goes wrong, till the point the decision is made whether to declare it as a disaster or not. Secondly, the RPO and RTO for individual applications, or if not at a application level, at least at a business process or sub-process level, see that whether your business continuity document reflects that, and the people who are conducting the BCP, are they doing it in the true spirit of it, or is it just, switching off the servers from here in a very systematic manner and switching on the servers at the DR location they only do that. There is no separate staff that is available at DR. Of course, take into consideration your framework, your business impact analysis, but this is what I feel that in terms of business continuity, which appears to be a very benign area, it has got a very deep meaning, and it has to be handled in a proper manner. Awareness, again, very neglected area. What is there to learn? But I'm so happy that Saturday mornings people are spending time in learning things. I'm really happy to see that. But otherwise, in the organization, they feel that it is the same thing. Why we have to look at it again and again? But as I've mentioned to you, because of this COVID situation, because of various cyber frauds that are happening, as a responsible people, or the people who are in charge of governance, can always do these 2 or 3 things. One, as I mentioned earlier in my slides, understand the animal, understand how the systems are, how the interfaces are, how your vendors are getting connected, how the users are getting connected. Understand the business impact analysis and risk analysis. Third one, refer to the standards. RBI is one such standard, but in my subsequent slides, you will find the list of other standards as well. The fourth one is, whenever some cyber incident or security incident happens, see to it, now that you know how your system looks like, see that whether is it possible in my environment. For example, if a particular cyber attack is because of some system that was not patched appropriately. Now you feel that, okay, this type of operating system is there in my environment also. Is it patched? A simple answer will, save a stitch, it will help you a lot. So whenever some incident happens, just try to map it in your own environment, whether it is possible, and whatever remedial actions were taken by that organization or suggested by their vendors, just try to see that whether they are applicable in your environments as well. So I'll talk about that when I talk about the cyber incidents as such, but the crux of the slides that I have covered so far is to, make you understand how the baby steps towards the information security will help you get more awareness and more confidence, which generally people feel that, okay, I don't know anything, I don't know the technical terms. This is very, very logical. I have not used any term which is actually a technical term so far. I'll talk about the cyber frauds a little later. I'll move to the next slide. This, I think I have, so this one is for banks, and RBI guidelines are also for non-banking financial institutions, which is a mellowed down version, of course. I've also given the reference from where you can find this document. So as you can see here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 areas. Here there are less, and of course it's not that deep. But having said that, it is covering all the important aspects of information security as such. So NBFCs and for banks, whatever guidelines are there, you will find it in the address, web address that is mentioned at the bottom of the slide. Now I'm talking about although I've mentioned that some considerations to the auditors, same is actually applicable to the auditee, because auditee is the one who prepares the RFP or defines the scope. So how the scoping is done? Somebody had asked me the question regarding interfaces, migration, APIs. So whenever you are including the applications, make sure that you are also including the interfaces to that. So scoping is very, very important. You are scoping in, let's say, the data center, but you are not including the machines at DR site. This is inadequate. As an auditor, then what we do is we take the walkthrough of the system. We try to understand the risks that could be there to the systems that are integrated in the audit environment. We try to understand what are the controls, whether they are automated, manual, at what frequency they run, what is the timing and extent, whether they're key, non-key, preventive, detective. I mean, all CAs over here may be able to relate to this. The sampling, testing methodology, and the documentation thereof. Because as we see these days, the regulators are becoming more and more, regulations are becoming more and more stringent, and regulators are also demanding certain things from auditors as well. They ask for the explanations, how they pass a particular control, why they give that type of rating, high, medium, low, what was the rationale behind that. So what happens is, if your documentation as an auditor is not proper, suppose the query comes after 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I have not seen it beyond 3 years, of course, but 3 years is a big period again because of attrition and all that. Your documentation should speak for itself, be it Rucha over there or be it any person who is there. If he refers to that documentation, he or she should be able to answer the query of a regulator. So from that perspective, the testing is also important. So also the documentation of the testing. The next question that comes to our mind as an auditor is always, I mean, whether a system auditor or a financial auditor, how much testing is adequate? So that is the audit risk, as we call it. The challenges that we generally have is unknown environment. We, as a systems auditor, we get maximum 1 or 2 months. And as you can see that if there are so many applications and such a complex environment, understanding that environment can pose some challenge. The fast changing technology, we are not the users of any technology, so to say, or we are not the users of any particular application in your environment. So still we have to audit it. And that's why the entire session today, that you have to understand the fundamentals. If the fundamentals are proper, then be it any technology, be it any application, with a little bit of research and little bit of studies, I think one should be able to audit that environment. Limited access to the information. What I mean by that is, as an auditor, we don't get access to the entire information that is required to make the opinion. So whatever is given to us, we rely upon that. Limited time to audit. And the last thing is, we may not have all the skills that are required as one person, of course. So it's a team effort. Like today, there is something in cloud, or maybe some organizations are using IoT, some organizations are using SCADA, as Mr. Satpute had mentioned. Some people are using, let's say, Bitcoin, or something new will keep on happening. So one way is keep on updating yourself as an auditor or auditee as well. The second one is you may have to take some help from an expert in that point in time. So these are some of the considerations to the system auditors, which are also explained in the chapter 5, I think, of that guideline. It is IS audited. I'm moving to the next topic. You have any doubt? I can wait here for a second. So this is like, in this slide, I'm just putting system audit will involve everything that is mentioned over here, okay? But depending upon the requirements, it can be bucketed into these 4 areas, as you can see over here. You can go by coverage actually, let the title be anything. Okay, so there could be some audits that are covering the IT processes, as this is the bucket 1, which is used in SOC 1, SOC 2, SOX, ISO 27001, internal financial controls, internal audit, and statutory audit. A very, very important part, as I can say. Then the second bucket could be the infrastructure review. So in infrastructure review, you remember I have shown you that slide wherein there were different symbols that were used for connecting the devices together, the routers, the switches, servers, firewalls, the configuration of that, the capacity, availability of that, the log management of that, the time management in that, the backup of the configuration. So backup is not always about the data. It can be about the code. It can be about the configuration. So that is what is covered in this, along with the antivirus and email solutions also, because even they play a big role in infrastructure security and such. So this is the second bucket. I usually say that technology is faithful. I mean, technology, how you implement it or whatever configuration you do it, it will not change on its own. There has to be some human interface to it or some process automated to it, which will change that. How you define how your rules, how do you configure the system will enable you to secure your systems. You can refer to this slide again when I'll be talking about the cybersecurity, because you really have no control on what could be the way in which the hacker will come into your system or the intruder will come into your system. But if your processes are good, that is this bucket. If your configurations are good, that is this bucket, then you will get at least some sleep at night that, okay, the systems are secure. Apart from that, the applications audit, it is called as post-implementation review or application review. SAP again is a different 1 hour discussion, so we'll not do it right now over here. But you can read over here, input, process, output, interface, which includes APIs also. Now, the components that are used in the system, that is servers, let's say, they can be HP or, standard, very standard manufacturers are there. You talk about, say, operating system, you have got Microsoft, Linux, Red Hat Linux and all that. You talk about network components, Cisco is a very trusted name. You talk about firewall, again, there are so many vendors, FortiGate and all that, which are reputed in the world. So the configurations or these components are known before you go to audit or before you go for any implementation. But this portion, which is the applications, are actually like, a kaleidoscope. It changes the whole picture because every organization will have a different set of applications. So your processes are same, your components also could be similar, but the application is what is actually changing the whole thing. Now the applications could be you are getting it off the shelf or you are developing it in-house. you're maintaining it in-house, you are outsourced certain things, and things like that. So your business rules are actually implemented into that, which you only know. No auditor or no vendor will know that in beforehand. So applications are the areas. If you're talking about the IFC controls, this is the area where you should be paying attention. If it is web-based, okay, I'll talk about that in this section, VAPT and web application security. So when I say web application, you can read it as mobile app and APIs. Now, when you tested this section, this second section and the third section, it is called as a compliance testing. And when you test this section, it is called as offensive testing. And when you do both, then you are making sure that your processes are properly functioning, your configurations are correct, your business rules and the applications are also functioning properly, and the ethical hacker who is testing this vulnerability assessment, penetration testing and security of your web application, mobile applications, etc. He is doing it from the outside, that is from the offensive side, and this is from the compliance side. So when the two things meet, that's, I think, the golden handshake kind of a thing, that both the things should be done. In this area, again, in web applications bucket, people are these days have started with the source code reviews. That means they are checking even not only the functionality of the application, but also whether any backdoor has been written into the application or not. So the source code reviews will reveal that. The other discrete audits are cybersecurity audit, red teaming, blue teaming, GDPR, that is privacy reviews, technology effectiveness reviews, vendor audits, the industrial security audits, the SCADA. What I mean by that is, in between, of course, this is could be a humor or a hearsay. I think 1 or 2 months before we faced this power outage in Maharashtra, we heard that it is because of some attack. Don't know, but there is always a possibility. The machinery which is used, they also have some element of hardware or some element of chips inside that. You can say extension of IoT to that extent. If they are compromised, then the whole operation, let's say the traffic system, the airline system, railway systems, road traffic situations, air traffic, your power, oil, gas, everything can get compromised if this type of security is not handled properly. SCADA security is picking up very fast these days, but of course it's not related to banking, so I'm not talking much about that at this moment. Cloud security, yes, again, as I mentioned, something is on cloud means something is not with you, it is with the vendor. You can have, of course, your own clouds also, but you cannot identify where exactly your information is. And the cloud environment has got a feature that it can expand as per your requirements, or it can collapse. You can bring down your requirements so that you can have a effective economical stake on that. But the security is again paramount. There are reputed vendors, so people definitely are thinking of outsourcing certain things. In banking environment, people are very conservative because of the RBI regulations also, and they feel that the data should be under their own custody. But they can take a relook at that, because certain things they can relieve themselves from that responsibility, and because the security is also offered by, let's say, Amazon or Microsoft or Google, they have their data centers in India, so that Indian laws are actually, as per RBI, the data localization laws are required. And if you are able to encrypt the data and keeping it on the cloud, I think that should take care of that, and you can make best use of cloud technology as well. Forensic readiness and digital forensic, I'll talk about it when we are talking about the cyber crimes as such, not now. But again, that is very important, because if the data is not captured properly, then you may lose the evidence which otherwise will help you to reach to the culprit or to take that person to the court. So that is also very important. using the data analytics. IDEA is the name of the tool. Sorry. IDEA is the name of the tool that I have already mentioned to you. That can be also used, and the people are moving towards, because of this Company Act 2013, continuous auditing, continuous monitoring. People are moving towards that, and your RPA, robotic process automations, can take help of that. And instead of having the audit only periodically, you can automate that. So the audits will happen at more frequently. I mean, it can happen at the instance level also. It can reach to that. So continuous auditing is also possible with the help of this. And there are some 38 use cases that are written for that. Then the insider threat, to be candid enough, I have not done this before. But yeah, there are programs and there are guidelines to understand the insider threat as well. Because if you've seen the statistics, unless the person who is working from within the organization, many a times the frauds are not possible otherwise, because the technology is faithful. I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, the configurations will not change on its own. It's only the user access that is not given appropriately, excessive rights given, sensitive rights given, SOD breach is there, or somebody gains unauthorized access from the backdoor or from the application. That's the only way the data will get compromised. So insider threat program guidelines are available. However, I have not yet received any opportunity to audit on those lines. But having said that, implementing that as a measure in the organization without I can say, diluting the environment of trust is always possible. So banks may also take a look at. I'm just skipping this slide because this is a very standard approach, the audit scope, understanding the environment, process walkthrough, compliance testing, substantive testing.
Hi, it's Hardik. So I basically wanted to just check if, you mentioned insider threat, you haven't probably had a chance to look through. But say, what about things like data loss prevention? I mean, today, all our data resides in a bank, and employees of the bank obviously have reasonable access to, or almost full access to, our data. Now, nothing, unless there are other controls, nothing stops them from sending, say, my own bank statement out to a third party.
Sure.
Or say, for instance, using their pen drive on a laptop. Many of them are equipped with a number of such equipments where they can simply move out data. Now, one factor you mentioned earlier is just trust on employees, but obviously that is not absolute. Trust is supposedly there and should be there, but to only a certain extent. Have you seen any controls in this space that the banks have implemented?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I mentioned to you, it's a series of seminars. So I thought that I'll not cover everything in one go, but just to answer your question, DLP is one such solution, but it requires lot of study of your own data. Okay. Now the data, first you need to know which data you want to protect and in what form it is that you want to protect. For that, generally the organizations who are following ISO 27001 guidelines, they have a data classification guidelines as well. Now these data classification guidelines, so let me put it in two buckets. One is your structured data, which is actually residing in the database. And the other one is your unstructured data, which is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, or image kind of documents. So these two needs to be handled in two different ways. As far as, let's say, database is concerned, the common user of a bank who is operating at a bank branch level will not have access to the direct database anyway. So for there, you have to worry about the people who are working in the data center environment, who are the administrators of the systems and the databases, so database administrators. For that, there is a solution which is called as PIM, Privilege Access or Identity Management Solution. So what happens is, whenever they are trying to access a particular database and trying to change that, everything gets recorded in that. It's a detective control, of course, but at least there is a control Apart from that, there will be a username, password, physical entry to that area may be restricted. There will be CCTV cameras. The systems are hardened so that there no CD-ROM drive or external hard disk or pen drive can be attached to that. So because see, they are ultimately the people who have got the access to the data. So although they have hardened the system, they can also open a particular port or open a permission to connect the pen drive to that also. But then, because they have to go through a secure path, which is a PIM, there could be many commercial products. I don't remember the names of those products, but the category of product is PIM. So to handle that security of a database level as such is you use PIM. If you are giving the data to your vendor, only the SLA conditions only can save you, because you really have no control on the data once it moves out of your environment. Now coming to the unstructured data, which is your Word, Excel, PowerPoint or PDF type of data or images.
And sorry to interrupt. I also feel that even the inside out review on a regular basis with in-house team and with the external agency can also help, because you mentioned that PPT, people, process and technology. So people has the major weight, 80% weight is over there.
Yeah.
Because today the stress level is there across all the sectors of the people, whether it is a middle management or senior management or junior management.
Right.
So if you can say anything on that? How
That's
you
the insider threat program, actually, insider threat recognition program. But what I'm talking right now is a technology solution.
Okay.
I'm answering in that particular aspect. One is PIM solution, and other one, because he mentioned about DLP. So DLP can be there, but before that, you have to identify which document you want to protect, which classification, which is very important. And based on that, for the employees, especially for the employees who are working across the country in various branches, if they are handling this type of data, then you can have a rule-based restrictions based on that to prevent the data loss. So data prevention measures can be taken, and PIM is the one which is for the databases.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Hardik, did I answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. So that was one, and I had another question. I mean, what we are obviously going through is the banking environment, which is reasonably well regulated by the Reserve Bank. Now, the threat, the challenge nowadays is obviously all the payments that we all make. As of now, a huge chunk of that is through banks, but people are increasingly moving to third-party applications like Google Pay. WhatsApp payments is just around the corner, and there are some regulated kind of folks like Paytm, etc. But there are a lot of unregulated third-party applications and people using that. Now, the challenge there is obviously around, well, they sit on top of the UPI platform, but the challenge there is still on privacy and cybersecurity, on the tools that people are using. Would you know what kind of these organizations are using increasingly to safeguard both privacy and security?
I think I'll answer your question in some time, if you can give me that time.
Okay.
Yeah. I have noted this question, and I'll get back. Yeah. Can I move ahead with this methodology? Yeah. So I was talking about the systems audit at a moment, and I was talking about the classical approach of understanding the environment, taking the walkthrough and testing and all that. Apart from that, these are the methods that we use as a classical approach. We try to understand the data flow. We try to understand the interlinkages of various security domains as it is put over here. And we also try to understand the touch points, as I have mentioned earlier. So these are the things that we do over and above the classical approach that we have, and that helps us understand certain subtle risks that are not otherwise mentioned anywhere or not known to people earlier. We understand that. We also refer to the best practices. Now, this is the list of few standards that we use in our audits, which is COVID 4.5. Actually, COVID-19 is what is actually currently referred to. But I personally, I feel that 4.1 is easy to refer. So I keep on referring that. And of course, whatever is required out of COVID 2019, that also I take it. But when I'm trying to apply COVID to the IT processes, I refer to 4.1 generally, because sometimes the organizations do ask us that they are at a particular level of security, the maturity level, and they want to go to the next level, or they want to have a comparison. Then we usually think that Rucha saying something is better than COVID saying something, because it will have definitely a higher weightage to it. And it is more objective, because and COVID has already done this, invented the wheel. Why reinvent again? So I will recommend that people who want to really improve upon their processes and who have got a reasonable securities implemented can refer to COVID 4.1 or COVID-19, which they feel that is required for them to understand, like, how do they go to the next level. Apart from that, ISO 27001, which is especially for the processes, de facto standard for information security. OWASP, I have given the full forms also below on the slide. It is Open Web Application Security Project. It's again a very widely used standard. It lists actually top 10. That doesn't mean 11th one or the 12th one is not important. They have got many more standards. ASVS is one more standard. So when you are scoping your audits, you are outsourcing it or in-house people are doing it, just ensure that minimum that they are doing is at least referring to OWASP top 10. But apart from that, they have another checklist, which is ASVS. I forgot the full form of it, but it is available on the internet. They should actually take into consideration ASVS, so that the other risks are also taken care of or tested. And how we do it is, we document the observations definitely, because that we need to give it to the client. But for our own purposes, we document the cases that are passed. So again, I think I'll take 2 minutes and talk about a story that in one, there was a war going on between two countries, and the aircrafts were getting heavily damaged and they were not returning. So what happened was one such aircraft returned to the base camp, and the authorities over there were sitting and discussing. And then everyone was looking at the aircraft, and they were looking at the marks where the bullets had hit that aircraft, and because of which it fell down and then got destroyed ultimately. They said that we need to increase the thickness of that plane over there, so that they will be able to come back. Now, only one scientist was there. He said, no, we have to rectify or protect the other areas, because suppose on the surface there is a hole, the aircraft at least could come back. But the other areas where it got hit, it could not come back. That means the damage was there in that area which was more vulnerable. So you have to identify which is failing anyway, you know how to rectify it. But the one which is passing, that you have to pay more attention, that basis what I'm saying that yes, it is secure, because auditor is giving a assurance, right? So internally from my side or the auditor's side, that what we do is, I always ask the team, how do you pass the control? If the control is failing, anyway, it will be discussed with the auditee. But if the control is passing, then it is our responsibility to validate it one more time with some other tool, other methodology, check it from 10 other aspects, and then only say that, yes, now the control is passing. So ASVS will give you some such references, because top 10 is only the top 10. 11th can also cause you the damage. So you have to remember, I have already explained certain examples, real life examples I have mentioned over here. Okay, so basically I did discuss some of the examples during the conversation so far. API, work from home I discussed. PCPDR also I had explained. The patch management. So patch management is like what happens is whenever some security alerts are there and the OEMs, that is original equipment manufacturers, they come across those solutions, they define or they devise a patch and then they release it for the organizations to update it on their own systems. These patches can be there on the databases, operating system, it can be there on the firewalls also. Now, what happens is whenever a new patch comes, so new patch can come because of some additional features, so I'm not calling it as a security patch, but the security patch is the one which is actually patching the known vulnerability. So some hacker somewhere has exploited that. There was a solution that was developed by the OEM and now it has given it to you. It's called as a security patch. Most of the organizations, and because of the number of servers that they have, the number of servers can really go into thousands. It is not possible to patch all the systems in one go. Also, while you are trying to do that, it can cause some harm to your regular working also. So the patch has to be tested first and then only to be applied. Now this takes some time, up to 2 months. So that's the window that is opened. And in that, sometimes because of this COVID environment, you may have to take a deviation. There is a vendor dependency. The application vendor may say that, okay, you deploy this patch. If it affects the application, then you have to give us some time to test it also. So patch management, we have seen that generally the observations are there in this area because of the vendor dependencies and because of the testing, it is not done properly, or many times it is delayed. So this is the area where one has to be very careful because the vulnerabilities are already known. So window is very small. At the same time, testing has to be done. At the same time, the vendor dependency also needs to be tested for the applications which are hosted on those servers or databases. Encryption, I think I'll take it because it's a big area. I'll take it in the next session. Linux server, it's always a kind of dilemma whether the Linux server should have antivirus or should not have antivirus. Some organizations have done it. Some of them, they don't install the antivirus. Many times in the smaller banks, I can say the antivirus solution is not centralized. So what happens is individual machines will have, but the administrator will not know whether the individual machines are updated in a proper manner or not. So this is another area where we usually get some observations, and the solution to that is having a centralized antivirus solution. Tape movement. This is again a debate point because whenever there is a replication on a DR site, people say that do we really need to have a tape? It's a call. But in case of ransomware, what happens is if the ransomware attack is there, then your main system gets compromised. Within say 20 minutes, your DR system also will get compromised because the data is getting replicated. In that case, then the tapes are the only solutions which can save you unless you have one more copy of the data stored somewhere else. So tape movement to the offsite location is very important because we have seen in many of the cases that they take the tape backup and then they just keep it on the server in the main server room. They don't even store it in the fire safe resistant, fire resistance cabinet as such. So tape movement is the area wherein we have to be very cautious about it. Again, the encryption also is required for tapes. Super users are sometimes created during the PCP drills and they are not deactivated. And these are the ones who are neglected, they cause the problems later on. Availability of the CCTV recording. So CCTV recording, CCTV is there, so compliance tick mark is there, but how long it is storing the data? I also talked about the logs. So even this physical person physically going to the data center or any other sensitive area, those logs also needs to be stored for reasonable amount of time so that if it is required, you can press it back. If there is a CCTV camera installed, but if it is not storing the data beyond say 7 days or 8 days, and then you want to dig out the certain data or you want to find out certain things which had happened, let's say 1.5 months before, your CCTV camera is of no use. Another thing I saw was CCTV mux, that is the unit which controls, is actually kept in the data center itself. What's a big idea? I mean, the perpetrator will just put it off. It will stop recording, right? So make sure that your CCTV camera is installed in one place, and the mux, that's a unit which controls that, is with the admin in charge or at some other location, you know, so that it will keep on recording what is going on in the sensitive areas. We have seen that users have got, so one person has got one user ID, but I have seen in some of the cases that one person, so the user ID was unique, but let's say Rucha was given 2 IDs, you know, so from the systemic perspective, there are 2 users, but actually the owner of the user was only a single person. So that is the area which you need to see in the light of segregation of duties. Risk assessments, we have seen that the web applications, mobile applications, APIs are not covered appropriately. If they are not covered appropriately, because these are the high level documents, your policy, then the risk assessment, accordingly and the consistent manners, the control will get implemented. So if your risk assessments are not properly done, the controls may or may not be there. So you have to make sure that the risk assessments are done properly, so that your controls will commensurate the risk. It's not, again, you remember that FOMO thing, fear of missing out. It's not necessary that all the measures should be implemented which are there in the world. No, not required. You see what is your risk and then implement the controls appropriately. Thank you very much for your time. Happy to answer the queries after the session is over.
Thanks, Rucha. I think that was really interesting.